Welcome to the third and final review of the evening. Up this time is a game called The Church in the Darkness. Um, okay, I suppose we should unpack that title, first of all. Because what is The Church in the Darkness? So this is another game based off of a religious cult. Mind you, pairing up Sagebrush with The Church in the Darkness was not because of any thematic similarity. It's mainly because that was the Nintendo Switch game for the
Mm-hmm.
so just, especially since the Church in the Darkness here is based off of a different cult movement. Sagebrush, that's based off of like Heaven's Gate and like more modern cult movements, if you can call, in at least in relation to the Church in the Darkness, which is the year is 1977, and you're dealing with a cult in South America.
So it's one of the militant cults. It looks like maybe
Could be. It's like it kind of depends on the story track that gets generated. At least in terms of their overall goals, and it's also dependent on the difficulty level you select. The harder the difficulty, the more militant the cult is. But getting back to my overall point, when you think of cults, South America, 1970s, you're thinking Jonestown. And yeah, there's definitely some Jonestown here, but like in terms of cult leaders, not so much. They're like the cult leaders here are more hippie collectivists than Jim Jones. Isaac and Rebecca Walker. That's one of the legally distinct areas here because these cult leaders are very different than Jim Jones in a lot of ways. Also, there's no Kool-Aid in this game. And the whole collectivist thing isn't just a general term here. That the cult has relocated to South America. Not specifically, say, Guyana, but still, they're in South America because they are the ultimate ideal of a late 1960s movement idea, and that's the hippie communes. And this is basically what would be the next, if not the next, but the ultimate outcome of that idea. Like, they've built an entire village deep in the jungle, and it's supposed to be a socialist utopia. Your character doesn't really give a shit about that, at least not at the onset. Your job is to find your nephew, or the nephew of a relative, depending on the scenario here. You're basically trying to find a kid named Alex who and you've got to infiltrate this camp to do it. And which, it's like, and I suppose the thing is, you can do that and only focus on that, or you can do other things and focus on that. It's quite open-ended. Indeed, like how much of the story you get, even meeting the cult leaders isn't something that's really guaranteed. It's like I really only met the cult leaders in fail states because, quite frank, the game is hard. Okay, even playing on medium difficulty mode, like this game is going to kick your ass until you really learn how to not just play by its rules, but really learn its mechanics, because it plays out in a relatively realistic fashion. That is to say, if you were a lone adventure person, let's say, up against an entire town filled with heavily armed cultists, what do you think would happen?
Because of course it's not so utopian that they don't need weapons.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's the villagers, and then there's the guards, and there's a few levels of guards. There's like the blue shirts who have the pistols, the red guard, like the red scarves who have the fucking shotguns, and they say there's more weapons, but I didn't encounter any of those, at least in my playthroughs. But
I'd make a joke about the
yeah.
What's the name? About the color coding, but I mean it's a cult.
Right.
They're all into that kind of like arbitrary.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the big choices is your typical stealth choice. Not so much getting caught or not caught, but how you take out people. Do you kill the guards or do you subdue them? I'm like, honestly, it was a lot easier for me because it was hard even getting to like the part 2 of the adventure, because the way it plays out is usually it's first you got to find somebody on the campus that's friendly to you, and they'll give you the location of Alex along with a task they want you to do.
Is it procedural or?
It's semi-procedurally generated. They overhype the procedural generation here. It's kind of procedurally generated in the pieces, but like the actual camp, no, that's a static map, believe it or not.
Oh, okay.
It's like the things that are procedurally generated are like the guards, your insertion point, the person you contact, where the cult leaders are, that kind of thing, where the documents are, and so on and so forth. Like, that being said, like the actual gameplay isn't going to really change from playthrough to playthrough. You're going to be doing a lot of sneaking, because if you try to run in guns blazing, you're gonna get killed.
Do they give you a decent supply of bullets, or?
It depends on what you select, because you have options of what you bring into the camp. You can bring in a gun, and also the more like when you find items in the camp, they can be unlocked and brought in subsequent playthroughs.
Ah, okay.
But it's dependent on what you want to bring. Like, you can bring 2 pistols if you want, and that'll give you about 12 shots. Mind you, a guard will go down in about 2 shots if you aim properly, and that's a big part of this. Like, you got to make it's not just you point and shoot. You've actually got to aim. Like, you'll draw your weapon, and then you'll press the, if I'm remembering correctly, on my controller is the X button, and then you have to make sure the reticule is aimed, via one of the analog sticks, and then you fire via the trigger. So it's actually pretty involved for firing a gun, but once again, this isn't an action game. This is a stealth game. Yeah, you can kill guards, but you're going to want to do that discreetly if possible. Because you can also stealth kill, although sneaking up on moving guards is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
Especially since they can turn around without notice. That fucked me over a few times. But yeah, in terms of stealth mechanics, honestly, they're pretty typical stuff. Like, if you've played a stealth game before, you'll know what to expect. I mean, I suppose there's more novelty in having that in a top-down setting than, say, a third-person or first-person setting. But it's like it's not really doing anything special in that regard. It works. It's just kind of clunky. Some of it's by design. Some of it is getting snagged on the architecture way too fucking often.
Ah, that old villain.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm trying to run. I'm like, what? Fuck. Part of my body's stuck on this. I guess brass. Fun tidings. You know, honestly, um, I feel an element was undercooked here, and that's interacting with the people. Like, I could understand having problems interacting with the guards, but it's like outside of a select few people, the regular villagers, they're not hostile, but they're still obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, I get
Well,
why.
I mean, a lot of them are probably just going to be inclined to report you to the guards.
Yeah, and that's another facet. The guards, if they don't shoot at you, they're going to go to an alarm box, and alert, which will bring more guards. And one of the considerations is disabling the alarms. You can, if the alarm's stripped, you can rejigger it with like a wire, or if you've got a metal shard, you can just destroy it with that. And those are in limited supplies as well. Health comes in the form of painkillers and various stuff you'll find in various like chests and shit. You can also hide in chests. You can hide body in chests. Like I said, this game is running the full gamut of what a stealth game is. Its execution is fine, if a bit clunky. Once again, like I said, some of it's definitely by design. Some of it feels accidental. In terms of the narrative, it's at least unique. Although I think it's a bit half-baked. At least that was the impression I got from my playthroughs. Music and sound. So the music here is doing the Half-Life thing. That is to say, the game is mostly quiet except for intervals of, pulsing like guitar, or sometimes the fucking cult leaders will come on the air and just start singing. I could not find it. I did not mute that, although I should have. What you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to find and mute the propaganda broadcasts. Oh, those got on my last nerve very fucking quickly. Once again, this is a cultist camp, so the cultists are spouting their beliefs over the loudspeaker. And it's fucking annoying. It's so fucking annoying. Thankfully, they give you the option to individually mute that. It made this game much more bearable. Let's see. Pricing. So this game will clock in at $20, $19.99. This on Steam, you can get the OST for $9.99. There is a bundle for $25. That's the one you should purchase.
Think the music is worth it?
Hard to say, honestly. Because, like I said, it's doing the Half-Life thing. The music is...
Official soundtrack and behind the scenes.
Yeah, there we go. That's probably going to make it a bit better. But like I said, the music itself is very short. Or at least what was played. I don't know if the actual tracks are longer. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit of a coin flip at this point. As far as the game itself, yeah, this game I think is worth the price mildly. Maybe wait until a bit of a sale. But it's okay. It's not as amazing as the bullet points would suggest. The procedural generation is definitely oversold, and quite frankly, I don't know. It's like it's like procedural generation in general is kind of overdone. It is interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see it presented in a narrative sense instead of just a design perspective. But I'm not sure the experiment was entirely successful. Uh, anyway, solid 6 out of 10. And the game isn't just on Steam; it's on all the major consoles. I don't anticipate there being a difference, given that this is a pretty simple game. I mean, it's probably the most technologically advanced of what we played this week, but still. Anyway, so yeah, that'll about do it for this installment of the Fragments of Silicon reviews. The week ahead. So, coming up on Wednesday, September 4th, we actually do not have a guest. That's mainly because PAX is going on as we record this, PAX West. And keep in mind, we're also coming off Gamescom. So, getting in touch with people, nailing people down for this week is one of those, it was too hard to do. At least for the Wednesday show. We do have a Friday broadcast as well with a guest. But on the Wednesday show, we will be talking about Age of Empires and the Capcom Disney games. So it's a double topic of discussion week. Look forward to it. And on Friday, September 6th, we will be welcoming back to the program Andreas Bordeaux of Ace Team. If you remember, they're the people who do the Rock of Ages series, among other games. Indeed, we have quite a bit to talk about. I was trying to get them, but they said they wanted to hold off until after Gamescom because they had some announcements to make, and they've made them. So we'll be talking about Rock of Ages 3. I'm trying to remember the other games that were announced. We'll probably also be talking about Soul Seraph, even though that's been out for a while. That was the main game I was focusing on pre Gamescom because that was the only thing that they got released and it was known about. But as it so happens, we'll be talking about a lot more. And I want to say hang on, I'm gonna have to look this up because they re-announced a game that had been in development for a while, but when on hiatus or something, I'm sure we'll. Let's see. Here we go. The Eternal Cylinder. Yeah. Also worth noting is they're working with different publishers now. It's like all of their games up till about the present have been done by Atlas USA. Now Soul Seraph was published by Sega, Rock of Ages 3, Modus Games, The Eternal Cylinder is Good Shepherd Entertainment. Also worth noting, this is going to be our first EGS coverage, because The Eternal Cylinder has been announced for the Epic Game Store. So, finally we'll be able to get some insight into somebody who has made the choice to go to the EGS, after they've done that. We featured some games that have done that before the fact. This is the finally after the fact. So I'm interested to get the perspective of somebody who's actually made one of these deals. Mind you, this isn't the last one of these that we've got lined up, but more on that in the future. Anyway, so that's what's happening this week. And until Wednesday, I shall wish you good gaming.